Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello to all of you watching here today, live or otherwise. We're looking forward to gigging out here today on error feedback handling, and we've got Pencil and Paper's resident UX pattern analyzers here. We have Ceara and Fanny. Yeah, they wrote a recent article on the subject of error feedback, available now on pencilandpaper.io. I really suggest you to check it out because they focus in on a handful of use case and potential solution that might even solve a problem you're working right now. But don't do that quite yet. Hang out with us just a little bit here because we're going to share even more insights here today, hopefully. Right, so let's get started here with a question that I know will get us rolling. So when was the last time you were using a piece of software and got the dreaded contact administrator error message? You know, the last time that you had this kind of error? I did like 2 days ago.
I did get it recently, and I got pretty mad about it.
we Same here. I felt just, come on.
Yeah. I think it was actually, I'm going to just continue to rag on Microsoft Teams again. We have an issue, but I think, I was trying to log into that, and there's something that is corrupt about like my specific login, like my email address, my account, and it's like, don't get on. Like, who's the administrator in this situation? Is it me? Is it our company, or is it the other company that we're trying to talk to, or is it Microsoft? Like, I was already table flipping, and it just took me over the edge.
I had to share a file also, and the file was corrupt, was the wrong file, and say, sorry, I can't help. I can't help, just contact someone.
Yeah. And even if it said like, hey, contact someone and ask them about blah, that would even be better. But you don't even know what to say. You're just like, ugh.
You, Fanny?
I don't remember something maybe like a consequence of like a migration that happened on a crypto app. They were like migrating to a whole other thing, and then I was trying to log in and I was following all the instructions, and I ended up having to email them. But I don't think it was like contact the administrator. It was just like, maybe that's even worse because I just ended up in a cul-de-sac, no exit situation, and I had to just let me email them, but not in the software itself though.
A 404 page, is some kind of a, contact administrator. We didn't find the page. We don't see that often. Anyway, let's talk about the article now. Let's. Why not? Oh, like that. It's fun. So you wrote an article. Why did you want to wrote this article, Fanny and Ceara?
Well, I think it was partially because, a big part of it is because it's a huge deal, user experience, especially with enterprise apps, because the errors are really complicated. And it's just such a common suite of mistakes that are made all the time. It's like one of those UX things that maybe it's not as like cool as other interactions or something, because people don't maybe have the drive to like fix them all. But we wanted to just put something out there that can really help people just do better error handling overall, I think. Yeah,
we rarely design for errors. It's sometimes afterthoughts. We're doing the mock-ups and all of this, and we forgot about the errors until, we have something live or we're coding something.
Yeah, it's always a challenge to be like, develop the reflex of asking yourself, what could go wrong in this screen I'm designing? And always keep that continual conversation of like, what errors could happen here? And then asking the dev, like, what types of errors can happen and what messaging should we put around it? But as you both said, it's something that often happens after, which makes that the default errors are always a bit sucky.
Yeah.
And you said something in an article, how to prevent an error. So as soon as you think about how I can prevent this, now we're going back to design. Sometime we say, oh, sure, okay, I may need to change even the flow or the UX to prevent this and not just design the error.
Totally. Yeah. To me, it's really like error prevention has a big connection with overall system logic and how you convey that to people. So when they're going to execute an action, you should be able to tell them what is going to happen from that, like what downstream effects it's going to have. And then if you just kind of leave them to themselves and then just show them an error later, it's like very blindsided. Like you get blindsided by it. But the prevention part is where I think the UX gets or the interaction design gets really interesting.
Yeah. We can see in mature user experience enterprise UX where there's a lot less error, but more, you can do this or that, or you can undo or revert back to a lot of guidance. So that's why we're seeing less and less errors now, but more guidance. Yeah.
Yeah, well, at least less user errors. If your UX can kind of nail that, there will still be errors sometimes because Wi-Fi goes down, servers down, like some other external thing. But then it doesn't make your user feel like they failed or like they did something wrong because your system has their back. Yeah, guidance is a big one.
And what component is the most appropriate for this situation? That's a great example of a system error. We have this challenge with a client where, okay, let's say the system is down, or I imported file and it's taking a long time, and I just want to tell you that it didn't work, for example. What component should we use? Should we notify them or send them an alert or something like that? So there's different way of sending the feedback. And in that case, I'm not even sure right now. Should I notify them and not stop their workflow, or say, no, stop everything, take a look at this?
It's really interesting with those data import use cases, I think, because or like some kind of system processing type of situations, because I've seen cases where a complex sort of process happens in the background, and there are a bunch of errors that are actually not that consequential, and so like it's more of a log compared to situations where it is actually a blocker. Yeah.
And it's not the same place where you're notified of, new things, new comments, new docs, or new user. You have your system kind of alert and you have notifications. So two different things. You can navigate your system, and now you're just alerted by something. It's not all in the same place. Yeah. So you have different use cases. You have the system error and user error. Can you share more about the difference? And
yeah, for sure. You want to go ahead, Fanny?
Well, make sure your system isn't speaking in a system language. If it's a system error, it's potentially very technical and like very codey and non-human readable. This is a very extreme example, but the least you can do is like take a look at them, audit what errors from the system can happen, and then what do they mean? Because even us, we might not know what the code means, and then it's again about having the right discussions with your team and like knowing how to communicate that in the most digestible way to a human, and giving options.
Giving options.
Solutions. If it is like a log-based thing where the system is showing you like everything that went wrong, you might want to be able to see that if you're like a super admin and you do want that level of granularity.
Just don't leave the user with there's a problem. Help them, guide them. Yeah. And if you have an acronym in your error message, this is a red flag, I think. Buzzword, acronym, something like that. Yeah. How would you test that, by the way? Make sure that, it's comprehensible. How would you test that as a UX designer? How would you test this error like that?
Send it to your mom by email. Ask her if she gets it.
It's funny because it's true. You could.
That's the way.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you do with this? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a really easy thing to test, though, I must say. Yeah? In Figma, or honestly, probably most other tools now, you can just show an error message and ask somebody, what do you think this means? Or like, what would you do next if you saw this? Or, questions like that. And you get a pretty good idea of how you've screwed up the language.
And shut up. Don't try to help. Just let them figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them click elsewhere. Yeah. So system error and user error. Fanny.
User error. What we kind of summarize in here is the rule of 3. There's like at least 3 things your error should include for when the user comes from the error comes from the user. Again, in the idea of guidance, you really want to inform them of like what was wrong, what did they do wrong, why did it fail, and then what can they do to fix it, or even better, prevent it the next time. Again, making sure language is readable and that you clearly have the three elements of like actionability, explanation, and like clear statement.
It's so simple, and we forgot something about what you could do next, and it's important.
Yeah. And it's a really good like checklist to go through for every error. So if you go back and you audit all the errors that you have in your system, and you can follow a really predictable language pattern, like you create a mental model for people that they can trust your product, because they know that, okay, if I do screw something up, they're not gonna, the behavior won't be like, oh, we deleted everything you have. They will show me this error. It'll say what went wrong, why did it go wrong, and what to do next. It's sort of like a predictable pattern, UX pattern you can actually create within your product.
And what's the balance between giving enough information but being precise about it? How would you handle that? Let's say for alerts or things like that.
It kind of depends on the audience that will see the error message, I think. Because there's certain error messages that are just going to be like an IT administrator type person's going to see, and not like a other type of end user. So in my experience, at least, I've done more detailed kind of messages when it is an IT or an admin that it's going to see the message. And then in cases where you really like, there's a lot of conditional logic, like if this, then this, and blah, 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 and you have to do a lot of explanation, then I pointed to documentation, like product documentation, to do some of the work. So not try to jam it all into the error message itself.
That's true. Documentation with error message. Yeah. You have a great UX tip here. Present all errors and don't persist or restrict. Oh, yeah. An email address is a great example. Just let me fill out my credit card. Wait until my code postal is done, until you say that I don't need a space, for example, things like that. Yeah. So how do you design for this, knowing that you don't know what will be the front end framework, for example, because most of the time there is handled by some kind of a framework. How do you deal with that? Or have you had any experience? Or just want to talk about it.
So I was about to say this, like a lot of the cases of this happening is in the form, and how it's nice to be able to like fill it up, like try and submit it, and if there are errors, then okay, let me do a pass 2 with my errors instead of like breaking, like blocking states a bunch of times. But that's true that the actual front end like setup is going to dictate a bunch of what's possible. Does the library allow you to search for errors one field at a time only, or are you able to like let the user submit and then give them more guidance? So,
Yeah. Important to
really
know
good question.
what framework you're designing with. Can you scroll because it's making me mad? This
Sorry,
GIF.
sorry.
I have to enter my email. I'm not alone. We all experienced it once in a while, you know. But yeah. So don't present all the errors, and yeah, okay. Can you
And
talk a little bit more about forms, maybe something?
Yeah, I've worked on stuff where we really want to do front end, like we want to do validation between fields on a form. And it's always really interesting design dev collab conversation because it can be a bit of a mix because you can validate some stuff on the front end and, you know, like certain fields wouldn't be selected at the same time, you know, things like that, like things that are mutually exclusive. But then some stuff has to go to the server and it actually has to like think in the computer brain first. So it's like it can be a mix of those two, like the immediate feedback versus the like submit and then, hey, some stuff is messed up. But it's always it's always a really interesting collaboration to try to figure out what those things are and communicate well with the dev team with documentation and stuff to be like to convey what the logic should be.
Is any errors, when we're about to design an error, made you rethink the original design in a way? Let's say you're building a form, and the way that the server is handling errors, you have to rework what you did. Have any example or use case?
Probably a lot. Use cases like that.
I know that with file uploading that we're working right now, we have, the alert of it's maybe too big, but the server will also tell us this information, will give you the information up front, it's more than 10 meg. But the server could also give us more information, like it's not the right format, it's corrupt, things like that, and it's different. Anyway, it's a weird challenge.
Like if you have multiple things at the same time.
And where? Is it an alert? Is it at the end of the form? Is it at the beginning? Is it below, the field? How would you audit things like that? Do you have an example?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Auditing an error.
It's like, it's been pretty, in my experience, it's been pretty complicated because like they've been built into the actual code a lot of times, not externalized or like put together into like one XML or something like that. It'll be like, oh, just everywhere in the code is where the errors are. So it's really hard to audit. Like you have to have a very dedicated dev that's like into this to help you to go and find them all and collect them for you. Because it's not just like, oh, just give me a CSV and they're all going to be in there. And then, so that's a complication. And then the other part is that if your product supports different databases like Oracle and SQ, all of those different ones, then they all have their own errors too.
It's another great point where dev need to design with us, need to be involved in the process of designing the thing. We cannot just, build something and ask them what they think about, because it's when they will code it that a lot of error will reveal themselves. Yeah, that's true. Anything else about error? Something that we should look at, something you want us to make sure we don't forget, or things like that?
I would definitely want to give an honorable mention to the ultimate error scenario that you can create. Like when you look at the very bare minimum, right, is that you tell people something went wrong. If you don't do that, then you're just like, okay, good luck, the computer's broken. And then we get to the step where it's a really well-crafted error message, so you know what to do next. But the ultimate is really, if you can't prevent the error, you have to present an error, then actually take the user through the workflow that they need to go through to correct the error. So you hyperlink them to the place if they have the power to change it. Let's say it's a workflow dependent, whatever kind of thing. If you can actually take them back to where the error originated from, have information on the field itself or within the error message that's like revealed, and you're like, hey, this needs to be one of these 3 choices to proceed, and then you correct it, and then you return back to where you were. That is a nice experience.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't see that often in Wizards, for example, where you have a step 4, you have a problem with step 2, and they're not helping. You can go back to step 2 and fix it. But that would be great. In even more in enterprise UX, where it's complex and you have a lot of steps to actually do something. Bring me back to the source of. Great. So please read the article. We'll share a lot of new articles also in the next month. So subscribe if you want more. And if you want us to work on something, any subject, just comment, and we'll sit down with a hot cup of something, and we'll think about it and write you something and do a live about it. So please don't hesitate. So any last thing, Ceara, Fanny?
Take errors seriously, please.
Yeah, errors matter.
Errors matter.
Yeah, wonderful. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and